Hello and welcome to our latest Railbookers webinar. Great to have you here with us as we look at luxury rail experiences with Railbookers. My name is Matt and it's my pleasure to be here with you today. Just to run through the format of the webinar, mainly for the benefit of anyone who's not familiar with the format of the webinars and how things run, we'll start off with a very brief introduction, which is really for the benefit of anyone who's new to Railbookers, just to explain very briefly who we are and what we do. Then we'll just take a very brief moment to answer a couple of popular questions that we get asked a lot at the moment for obvious reasons. One of them is about current safety precautions and how things are currently working in mainland Europe, North America and beyond. And also we'll just take a very brief moment to look at what are some of the main differences between a luxury rail holiday and perhaps a regular holiday by train. Then we'll start the main part of the webinar. So, as promised, a very brief introduction to begin with. And first of all, we'll take a moment to look at why travellers love Railbookers and travelling on our train holidays. And the answer to that really is that there isn't just one answer, it's a number of different factors really. Firstly, we have the rail expert knowledge, or as we like to put it, we speak rail, and that goes from everything from knowing the best combinations, the best routes, best ways of travelling between different places, all of which combine to maximise the enjoyment of travelling by train. And that rail holiday can be anyone of a wide selection of different types of holiday. For example, it could be a luxury rail holiday, as we'll be looking at today. It could be a city break. It could be a multi-city or multi-country journey. It could be a tailor-made rail itinerary that you'd like creating. There's lots and lots of different options out there. And all of those different holidays can be booked for travel from any time from today all the way up until 2023. So you can book up to 2 years in advance, meaning that if you do have that bucket list trip coming up or special occasion that you're celebrating, or you're simply traveling at a very popular time of year, you can go ahead and secure the space knowing that you're covered either way. And really, whether it's any destination, any date, any length of time, if the train goes there, then so do we. We do also have a range of digital brochures which are available for you to peruse or download via our website. For those of you who don't know, our website is railbookers.co.uk, and you can find our main Railbookers brochure, which has a selection of our most popular holidays all around the globe. But we have a couple of other brochures that you might be interested in. Specifically on the theme of today's webinar, we have a luxury rail holidays brochure, which you can download. We've also got one on holidaying in the UK. I've got one focusing just on Scotland if you're looking for trips closer to home. And we also have some ideas on extending your cruise holiday. Perhaps if you have a cruise book for next year, some great ideas about how you could bookend that with some travel by train, either before the cruise or after the cruise is finished. So lots of great ideas, all available for your perusal right now. And why should you book now? Very good question. We are offering maximum flexibility for all customers making new reservations at the moment. And that means that should you need to change your date, the duration, or even the destination of your holiday, you can do so at any point up until 60 days prior to departure, and that won't incur any change or cancellation fees to do so. One of the ways that we aim to take the complexity out of rail travel is by working directly with all of the main rail operators in Europe, North America and beyond. And here on the screen, you can see a selection of some of our, not just our partners, but our friends and colleagues in Trenitalia, Deutsche Bahn, SNCF, Swiss Railways, Eurostar, where so many of our trips begin, of course, Via Rail over in Canada, Amtrak, and many, many more too. And what that allows us to do is not only to have access to the best available prices for you, which is of course very important, but also that's how we're able to offer all of these holidays for booking up to 2 years in advance, meaning that if you are, as I say, looking to secure that special occasion that you've got coming up, make sure your holiday is confirmed around that time, then you can go ahead and do that. And crucially, you get everything confirmed at the current year's prices as well. So you're not going to be subject to any price increases that might happen over the course of the next 2 years. Now, I mentioned we would take a slight detour to look at a couple of popular questions that we're receiving a lot at the moment for obvious reasons. And this is the first one. This question is something that we're being asked all the time, which is how rail operators in different parts of the world are maintaining a safe travel environment. And the answer to that is doing a number of different things, some of which may differ slightly from country to country, but there's some key essentials that are in place pretty much everywhere. So in Europe, North America, facial coverings are required in all stations and onboard trains for all passengers and staff. Already existing cleaning and sanitation measures have been increased both on the trains themselves and at the stations. And where possible, ticket control is being carried out in a contactless fashion. Again, just to try and keep social distancing between staff and passengers where it's possible to do so. So using email, apps and so on to be able to carry that out. Now, just before we start the main part of the webinar, a question that we always get asked whenever we announce a webinar along the theme of luxury rail travel is what makes a luxury rail journey different from a regular holiday by train? And it's a really good question. So let's just take a moment to consider that. Firstly, a luxury rail holiday will nearly always be composed around a train route that's either iconic, historic, or incredibly scenic, and sometimes a combination of all three, and we'll certainly see some great examples of that today. You can be assured of impeccable onboard service throughout, with dedicated stewards and staff looking after your every requirement throughout the journey. Also, there's going to be world-class cuisine, great food available, prepared by private chefs on board the trains that you will be traveling on. On many luxury train journeys, you will sleep on board the train as well, and there's always a variety of different types of onboard accommodation to choose from. However, as we'll see in the course of the webinar today, you don't sleep on board every single luxury rail journey, so we'll look at some exceptions to that rule too. And of course, there'll be many excursions, private excursions for the group, and additional activities that can often be arranged for individual customers as well. So hopefully that gives you a little flavour of some of the different things that all go together into combining a perfect luxury rail holiday. Anyway, that's enough introduction. Let's take a look at some examples of some of the most popular luxury rail holidays that we're seeing at the moment. So this is what people have been booking for next year now and beyond into 2023. So let's look at some of those most popular examples. And the first one is close to home, really, is our Belmont Royal Scotsman Highland journey. And this journey begins in Edinburgh. Now, of course, if you're traveling from another part of the UK and you'd like us to add on your travel to the Scottish capital, perhaps stopping along the way, of course, we can do that if you'd like to. But we begin with a night in Edinburgh, and then you would board the Royal Scotsman and travel around the beauty of some of that wonderful countryside of the Scottish Highlands on board that luxurious train. Where you see a 1 on the map with a kind of a pale colour next to it, that's a night that you will spend on the train. And actually on the Royal Scotsman, it will actually park overnight in a quiet siding in the middle of the Highlands, so the train's completely stationary during the evening. And then you'll carry on exploring the Scottish Highlands the following day. And some of the wonderful activities that are included on this particular journey are a private tour of the battlefield at Culloden. You get to experience clay pigeon shooting at the Rothiemurchus estate. And of course, when in Rome, you'll have a distillery visit as well, and much more besides. And then you'll finish up back in Edinburgh again, have another overnight stay before continuing on, perhaps extending your holiday if you choose to, or heading back home. The choice is yours. And this is where everything begins. This is Edinburgh, the Scottish capital, of course. And there's always that wonderful contrast in Edinburgh between the old town, which dates back to medieval times, and the Georgian New Town, but a really fascinating city, lots to see and do and visit if you've not been there before, or indeed if you have. But if you've not been there before, you can go see the Scottish Crown Jewels, the Royal Yacht Britannia, lots and lots to see and do. And it's just a very, very walkable city and just so full of history, really, really interesting place to visit. So if you've not been to Edinburgh, highly, highly recommend it. And it's Waverley Station, where you would board the Royal Scotsman, and the boarding of the train would be accompanied by, if not this gentleman, then somebody doing the same job. And the sound of the bagpipes, of course, what more appropriate way to signal your departure off into the Scottish Highlands. It's heading off in style. So what's it like on board the train? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the dining room, which you can see here. A really beautiful period setting with the mahogany panelled cars, which you can see here, which run throughout the train, and quite a lot of the themes. The tartan that you can see there on the uniform, the mahogany, will be carried out throughout all the different rooms along the train itself. As for the food, well, there's a real focus on Scottish produce, as you can see here, so salmon, oysters, things like that, and always accompanied by a selection of fine wines, malts, and liqueurs too. As for the onboard accommodation, all cabins are fully en suite. Each one features plush beds fitted with soft Scottish wools and tartans, as you can see here. This is a double cabin, and here we also have a single cabin as well, so for solo travellers, and also a twin cabin as well. So what you can see is that all of the cabins on board the Royal Scotsman, all of the beds are lower berth. And you can see those mahogany panelling and so on, all of those features running throughout the train. And last but not least, we have the lounge car, which is absolutely the best vantage point from which to enjoy that spectacular Highland scenery, perhaps get to know your fellow travellers, or sit back and enjoy a glass of Highland malt or a coffee or something like that and just watch the world go by. But you can enjoy the scenery from here, really, really comfortable, and right, the real social hub of the train, I think. So that's our Royal Scotsman Highland holiday. Moving slightly further afield now, the next holiday that we'll look at is a little bit different because it's not perhaps a luxury train in the traditional sense, but it's a new, relatively new addition to the pantheon of great train holidays or train trips that you can do, and one that we highly recommend. So let's find a little bit more about it. This is our Grand Glacier Express Excellence Class holiday. Now here the holiday begins in Zurich, which you can either reach by a flight, or you can travel by train from London onto Paris and then Paris onto Zurich. The choice, as they say, is yours. From Zurich, we'd start off with an overnight stay there before heading down to Zermatt for a 2-night stay, including a ride on the absolutely spectacular GORNERGRAT cog railway. Then it's time for that amazing scenery, wonderful travelling experience of travelling on board the Glacier Express in the new Excellence Class accommodation. And that would run all the way across to St-Moritz in the Graubünden canton in Switzerland. You'd have a 2-night stay there before returning to Zurich and either heading back home, or if you choose to extend your holiday, of course, you could do that as well. So once again, let's take a closer look. And this is the iconic Glacier Express train, the slowest express train in the world, they call it. And really the word express is a little bit of a misnomer here. It's nothing to do with speed. It's really all about taking in the wonderful scenery that you experience. In fact, the full journey, which you would do on this holiday from Zermatt to St-Moritz, takes 7.5 hours to cover 180 miles. So really, it's about experiencing the different landscapes, different types of scenery, everything from mountains, lakes, viaducts. It really does have it all. And you can see from this great shot of the train here that every carriage on board the train has these wonderful panoramic windows. You can see how high they stretch up, meaning that everybody on board the train has a fantastic view of that stunning Swiss scenery. So what makes this different? What makes it a luxury rail holiday? Well, we're all the way back in the distant mists of time to the year known as 2019, which seems a very long time away now, doesn't it? The Glacier Express launched a new class of travel, which you can see here, and this is called Excellence Class, and it's very, very exclusive. It only runs on one train a day in each direction, and it's only available on the full duration of the Glacier Express between Zermatt and St. Moritz. And there's only one Excellence Class carriage on each train. And as you can see here, it's comprised of about 20 seats, so very, very small, very much a small group, very exclusive. Each seating configuration is a table of two, perfectly lined up against the windows. So everybody gets a window seat, everybody gets a perfect view. And it's not just about the exclusiveness, it's also a real gastronomic experience. So in the course of your journey in Excellence Class, you will be served a 5-course meal, all served at your seat. And each course will be accompanied by a particular Swiss wine as well. And all of the meals will have a real Swiss flavor, some of the popular local dishes from the areas that you'll be traveling through. So it's a real gastronomic experience, as well as taking in that wonderful scenery. And this here on the screen that you can see, this is the Glacier Bar, where you can relax with an aperitif perhaps before the food starts to appear. And you also have the services of your own concierge who look after you, a barman as well, and your luggage travels securely in a separate part of the carriage as well. And you'll have commentary provided as well at certain points throughout the journey to explain some of the significant points of scenery and places of interest that you'll be traveling through. So it makes what is already an absolutely spectacular journey just that little bit better. And if you're really looking for something, something exclusive, something extra special, then this really does hit the spot rather. It's got that great combination that we talked about of an iconic route, great scenery. It really does have it all. And in terms of the destinations that you'll be visiting, you would start off in the ski resort of Zermatt, really picture postcard Switzerland. Car free as well, which is quite interesting. And then just a short stroll outside the town of Zermatt, you can go for plenty of great walks exploring the natural beauty countryside, all of which in the shadows of the Matterhorn mountain, which you can see here, which is the real symbol of Zermatt. And Zermatt is the best place to go to admire views of the Matterhorn. Now with this, and indeed any other holiday, one thing that you can do with us is you can look to upgrade your hotel experience in one or more destinations if you'd like to. So most of our holidays will be based on 4 or 3-star hotels throughout, but you can upgrade to a 5-star hotel if you want to in a particular destination, or indeed all the way through. On our luxury rail holidays, slightly differently, we may feature 5-star hotels on many of them as a standard to match the accommodation on the trains, of course. But again, there might be something extra special that you can choose to upgrade to, just to really cap off the perfect rail holiday. And you can do that as often or as infrequently as you like. It's entirely up to you. And here's an example of how you could do that in Zermatt. You could stay at this oasis of tranquility, the Riffelalp Resort, and this is the Matterhorn Suite. And you can see why, can't you? If you just look through the windows at the back, you've got wonderful views of the Matterhorn there. Absolutely fantastic location and a beautiful experience. During your stay in Zermatt, you would take a trip on the GORNERGRAT cogwheel railway. And the GORNERGRAT is the highest open-air railway in Europe. It was created all the way back in the 19th century, and at that time it was the world's first fully electric cog railway. As the train is climbing on its ascent, you'll often get to see ibex running around the mountainside, which is quite nice as the train approaches, and really lots of great natural beauty as you start the ascent up the mountain. And there are a couple of highlights that we should mention. One is that you get these wonderful views of the Matterhorn throughout the trip, not just at the summit, but as you're ascending. And then when you reach the top, you get a wonderful view like this one, where you can see not just the Matterhorn, but you've got a 360-degree view of 29 mountain peaks, all of which are over 4,000 meters high. Absolutely stunning. Snow pretty much all year round. And very, very special. You can spend as much time at the top as you like. There's lots of walks and activities that you can do. There's an observation area, lots of interesting things. And then when you fancy heading back down to Zermatt, you can catch the next cogwheel train back down again. So really beautiful part of the world. If it's scenery that you're looking for, Switzerland obviously has it all. But this is a relatively new experience. As I say, Excellence Class only launched back in 2019. And obviously over the last 18 months or so, not too many people sadly have been able to experience it. So it's good to be able to remind everybody, or perhaps let you know for the first time, that this new class of travel exists on what's one of, rightly, the most famous and celebrated rail journeys in the world. Time to move on once again, and this time we'll look at a different part of Europe, and we'll look at northern Spain. And this is another great luxury rail holiday on board the El TRANSCANTABRICO. And this luxury rail journey runs from San Sebastian through to Santiago de Compostela, a really interesting part of Spain. So your journey begins in Madrid with a 2-night stay. And then from Madrid, you would travel up by train to San Sebastian for an overnight stay before the journey on board the TRANSCANTABRICO begins. An epic 7-night journey through España Verde, green Spain, with lots of great stop-offs and sightseeing activities along the way before you finally arrive in Santiago de Compostela. You'd have an overnight stay there, which of course you could turn into a little bit longer if you wanted to, before heading back to Madrid for another overnight stay and then returning home once again. So Madrid is where we would bookend the trip with 2 nights at the start and 1 night at the end, and so many great buildings, great pieces of architecture, great places to visit, the Prado Art Gallery, for example. And the building and scene that you can see on the screen here is pretty much the symbol of Madrid in any ways. This is the Plaza de Cibeles, and this famous fountain is named after the goddess Cybele and is a real symbol of the city. And you can often see it on the news, for example, where famous occasions, popular occasions in Spain, people will gather around this particular square and fountain, and it's a real symbol of the city. So after Madrid, you head on to San Sebastian, and then from there, you would board the TRANSCANTABRICO. So let's take a little look and see again what it's like on board the train. So this is the type of accommodation that you would have. These are the Grand Lujo suites, really spacious with, again, lots of wooden furnishings, as you can see here. Each suite is comprised of a living room area and a bedroom, which can either be double bed or twin bedded, subject to availability. Both types are available, and they all have a fully ensuite bathroom as well. There's also a really nice dining room on board the train. Now, some of your meals you would enjoy on board, like breakfast, for example. Others you may have while you're out and about exploring different parts of Spain to get that real local flavour. So it'll be a mixture of dining on board the train and dining off the train during some of the excursions that you would be having throughout the trip. Another really nice feature of the train are the 4 saloon cars. You can see a couple of them here. And these are original Pullman lounge cars dating from 1923, all of which have been specially refurbished for the trips on board the TRANSCANTABRICO. So that's what it's like on board. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of the journey itself. And this is definitely one of the highlights. This is on day 6, and this is at COMILLAS, where you would get to visit El Capriccio, which is a really colourful 19th century villa designed by a certain Antonio Gaudi. You may have heard of him. Very, very popular in this part of the world. Lots of his handiwork is still to be admired to this day. And this is one that perhaps is slightly lesser known, as it's a little bit off the beaten track, but absolutely fantastic building, as you can see, and the colours are just absolutely amazing. Then on day 7, you'd also have another highlight here, which would be a visit to the caves at Altamira, which are arguably one of the finest examples of prehistoric cave art in the world, and certainly one of the very first to be both discovered and actively promoted as well. So a real glimpse back into a bygone age, absolutely, and some wonderful examples of cave art. So really, really fascinating. And on day 8, just to pick another little highlight of this particular section of the journey, you would visit the PICOS d'Europa National Park, which is a really beautiful, tranquil area. It's spread over 11 different villages, which makes it Spain's only inhabited nature reserve. And it's famous for its dramatic scenery and also home to many different types of wildlife, ranging from deer through to vultures and many, many more. And at the end of your journey on board the TRANSCANTABRICO, you'd arrive to Santiago de Compostela, the capital of Galicia, of course, and probably most famous as both the terminus of the ancient Pilgrims Trail and also supposedly the burial site of St. James, whose remains reportedly lie within the famous cathedral here. So you'd have one night here before returning to Madrid for a final night of your holiday. But of course, if you'd like to extend that, make it a little bit longer, all of the holidays we feature, if you'd like to spend a little bit more time in one destination, of course you can. You just need, as always, to let us know. So there we go. That's our El TRANSCANTABRICO holiday running along northern Spain, and some really interesting places you get to visit. Lots of history, lots of natural beauty, and a few places that are a little bit off the beaten track and not quite as easy to visit under other circumstances as well. So if you're looking for a luxury holiday that's perhaps a little bit different, that could be the one for you. Now, as we're talking luxury rail, there's one journey that we are almost contractually obliged. Well, we're not technically contractually obliged, but we really have to feature because it's probably the most famous of them all, and that's the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. Now, there are so many different ways that you can enjoy this journey. We've got a vast number of different types of holiday, all featuring this iconic journey. You might just want to visit Venice. You might want to extend your holiday into Italy. You might want to take the Orient Express to Venice. You might want to travel back to London in style. Lots and lots of different options, and we've got a whole section with some great ideas, different types of holiday that include this most famous of journeys. But this is one that's becoming more and more popular year on year. And we really like it because it's a great combination of the fantastic iconic journey, and then after leaving Venice, you get to explore some of the wonderful scenery in Switzerland before returning home. So how the journey works is you would travel from London through to Venice on board the iconic Venice Simplon-Orient-Express, including an overnight on the train. You'd wake up to some wonderful scenery as you arrive into Switzerland and then Austria, and then head down into Italy. 3 nights in Venice, which of course is a fantastic destination in itself. And then from there, we take the scenic route back home, heading into Switzerland, firstly by the UNESCO World Heritage listed Bernina Express, one of the most stunning train journeys in the world. You spend 2 nights in St. Moritz, and then you travel on board the Glacier Express, as we were just looking at, all the way across Switzerland to Zermatt. 2 nights there, including a trip up the GORNERGRAT railway to see the Matterhorn. before heading on to Zurich, and then you can either fly home, take the train home via Paris, or continue on with your holiday, whichever you prefer. But a wonderful combination of fantastic scenery on that portion of the trip. Anyway, if you wanted to know what its life is like on board the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express, now is the time for us to take a closer look and see. This is the bar car, first of all. This is the real social hub of the train in the evenings. This is where people will gather pre and post dinner, a pianist will play, and you can really sit back, relax, and take in the atmosphere. The Art Deco feel echoes throughout the entire train. And people will really be entering into the spirit of the occasion. There is a dress code on board, and in the evening, a low dinner jacket, tuxedo style affair are not compulsory. You'll find that lots of people will be doing evening dress just to really enter into the spirit of things. And if you just imagine a little bit, it does really feel like you're traveling back in time, back to the golden age of travel. And all of the uniforms of the staff, the ambience, the furnishings, everything combines to just really harken back to the golden age of travel, as I say, all those years ago. And it's a little bit of a cliche, I think, to say that it's the sort of holiday that provides memories that last for a lifetime. But you know what? I think sometimes cliches are cliches because there's some truth in there. And let's face it, if you're lucky enough to enjoy this particular holiday, then you will have memories that will last an awfully long time, because it is a very, very special experience. And as I say, you can really imagine that you're not in the 21st century anymore, that you're traveling in a bygone age, and it's just a very, very special, unique experience. Here you can see the lounge car where you can relax during the day or in the evening. Again, perhaps get to meet some of your fellow travelers, or just sit back, relax, and take it all in. As far as your cabins are concerned, this is what your cabin on board the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express would look like when you board the train. This is set up for daytime with comfortable seating, as you can see here, a large window from which you can enjoy the scenery. And then whilst you're enjoying one of the many meals that are included on this wonderful trip, you're certainly very, very well fed and watered indeed. There are 2 sittings for dinner, and your cabin steward would come along and ask you which sitting you would prefer. And whilst you're at dinner, he will be beavering away to get your cabin ready for the evening. And when you return, it will look something like this. So you'll now have your sleeping accommodation ready for the evening. And just out of shot at the bottom of the screen, you've got the Orient Express slippers and the Orient Express bathrobe just behind the door as well. So all ready for the evening, and then your steward will arrive with a knock on the door in the morning. You'll have awoken to wonderful scenery outside the window because you'll have now arrived in Switzerland overnight. And then breakfast will be served in the cabin for you in the morning. And then you'll also have lunch and afternoon tea on board the train as well. So the food is wonderful, all freshly prepared on board. In fact, often if you're lucky, you might see the train stopping at a small station and taking on deliveries for the evening meal or for lunch that day throughout the course of the journey. So that's a little glimpse into the accommodation. If you would really like to travel like royalty and really want something extra special, well, there are an extremely limited number, there's about 3, of these grand suites available on any one departure. And these have actually been especially created over the last couple of years. Again, they're relatively new. And you've got the really opulent surroundings here, a huge amount of space, the full double bed, full ensuite bathroom. You really can travel like a king or a queen. So if you really want to do it in maximum style, comfort and luxury, well, this is how you can do it. But once again, you need to get in quickly because there's literally less than a handful of these available on any one departure. So they're going to go very, very quickly. And once again, just a quick reminder that you can upgrade your hotel stay, of course, in Venice or any of the destinations that we feature. And here's a little look at one of our favourite hotels in Venice. This is the Metropole Hotel, just a stone's throw from St Mark's Square. So a wonderful location, particularly if you've not been to Venice before, right in the heart of things. And then looking out, you can see the canal in front of you through the window there, and looking across to the Giudecca. A really, really stunning setting, and everything that you're going to want to see and do is just going to be a short walk away from there. So absolutely perfect location. And we won't go too much into Switzerland because we're not focusing on Switzerland, particularly in the webinar today. But a reminder, of course, we talked about the wonderful journeys that you do on the way back home. And if you really wanted to, again, to make the holiday extra special, of course, you could look at upgrading on the Glacier Express to excellence class, couldn't you, on that particular part of the journey, as we looked at just a few moments ago. And again, it would be very, very different to the Orient Express, obviously much more modern and contemporary. But again, that wonderful theme of gastronomy would feature throughout, and it'd be a really nice complement, I think, although very, very different. So again, just an idea of how you could enhance and upgrade your holiday if you would like to. And now, if not time for something completely different, something slightly different, we'll head across the pond to Canada. More fantastic scenery, of course. And we will look at our Trans-Canada and Rockies adventure, featuring another very, very famous luxury train, the Rocky Mountaineer. So let's take a closer look. So here, the holiday begins in Toronto with a 2-night stay, and we include a trip out to Niagara Falls whilst you're there. Then you would spend 3 nights on board a train called the Canadian as you travel with Via Rail, the Canadian National Rail Service, across Canada, lots of different landscapes, from prairies to forests and some farmland. And you would arrive into the heart of the Canadian Rockies, into Jasper. And then you'd have an overnight stay in Jasper. You would then continue by shuttle onto the absolute beauty of Lake Louise. Banff, you'd have tours of the National Park, the Icefields Parkway. And then from Banff, you would travel across the Rockies for 2 days through some absolutely beautiful scenery through the Canadian Rockies on board the Rocky Mountaineer. And you don't actually sleep on board the train. You'd have an overnight stop in Kamloops, which is basically, because that's pretty much exactly halfway throughout the journey. So you see everything by daylight, overnight in Kamloops, get back on board the next morning and carry on. You experience the whole journey by day. And then you finish up in Vancouver, British Columbia, for a 2-night stay, including a Vancouver sightseeing tour. And then you've almost gone coast to coast across Canada. Toronto's not exactly on the coast, but we can add on travel from Halifax to Toronto if you'd like to say that you've traveled coast to coast across Canada by train. In fact, we've got a number of holidays that do that as well. But an absolutely wonderful journey, great scenery. Again, let's take a closer look. So here we begin in Toronto, and here you can see a view of the city from Casa Loma, which is a castle located in Midtown Toronto, and it's now actually owned by the City of Toronto and regarded as a treasured heritage landmark. 2 nights in Toronto, including a trip out to Niagara Falls, of course. Again, when in Rome, an absolute must do. And then you would embark on a journey on board the Canadian, the flagship train of Via Rail, and you would head across a variety of different landscapes as you travel across Canada. Again, you can see the domed windows of the observation cars on the roof of the train there on the left-hand side, and some of the wonderful Canadian scenery too. There's different types of accommodation available on board Via Rail. For example, you could have a cabin for 2, here seen by day. But if you are looking for something extra special, and again, this is a webinar focusing on luxury rail experiences, then you might be interested in upgrading to the Prestige bedroom. Now, again, this is very, very exclusive. There are only a handful of these available at any one departure. So once again, you do have to get in quickly. But these are much larger cabins, which have got full ensuite bathrooms, and as you can see here, a full double bed, which is pretty rare to get on a regular scheduled train service. There are only really a handful of, well, not even that really, only a couple of train departures that I can think of that offer that service on regular scheduled trains. So pretty special. And during the day, this double bed is transformed into an L-shaped sofa, so you can relax, enjoy the scene. You've got an absolutely huge window as well that you can enjoy the scenery from there as well. You also have the services of your own 24-hour butler service to look after you. You've got unlimited drinks included. And all Prestige travellers have access to the Prestige Park car during the day, where you can enjoy the scenery as well. Also, great onboard dining on board the Canadian as well. It was just included for every passenger in Sleeper Plus accommodations. So everyone who's in the sleeping car gets all of their meals included. If you're in the Prestige cabins, you have a choice of sitting. You get a priority choice, and you also get wine included with your meals as well. And again, there's a real focus on local flavors and dishes, lots of local specialities, and a really nice setting again as you get to enjoy the meal on board the train and just take in all of that wonderful scenery too. And the scenery gets better, to be honest, after you've left the train, because after Jasper, just take a look at that. You would carry on by shuttle first of all to Lake Louise, the famous turquoise waters, the stunning mountain backdrop. You've got the Victoria Glacier just in the back there. Really beautiful part of the world, isn't it? Just absolutely stunning. Really breathtaking. And there's yet more breathtaking scenery that you can enjoy on the Glacier Skywalk, which you can see here. And this is a 1 kilometer length walkway which leads all visitors to a glass-floored observation platform which overlooks a 280-meter drop. Again, what a view. Absolutely stunning views of the Rockies, the mountains, really special. And just, one of the most beautiful places that you can visit in the world. We've looked briefly at parts of Switzerland earlier on, but Canada has got, of course, some absolutely beautiful backdrops. As you can see here on another tour, we include a lake tour in Banff National Park as well. So as you can see, hopefully it's not just the Rocky Mountaineer on this holiday. There's lots and lots of, there's a great train journey, just a Toronto visit to Niagara Falls, and then some wonderful exploration of some of the most scenic and beautiful parts of Canada. Jasper, Lake Louise, and Banff. And then, last but by no means least, of course, you have the world-class luxury train experience that is the Rocky Mountaineer. You travel from Banff to Vancouver. As I mentioned, you don't sleep on board the train on this particular journey. You'd have an overnight stop in Kamloops, which is literally chosen because it's exactly halfway and means that you can see everything by daylight and enjoy the Rockies by daylight. And here's an example, of course, of some of that wonderful scenery that you would get to experience as part of the journey. It's really special going along the Canadian Rockies. And as I say, the advantage of traveling by the Rocky Mountaineer, as well as the wonderful service and food and all those other things, which we'll take a look at in a moment, is that because you have the overnight stop in Kamloops, it's all done by day, so you don't miss a single part of the scenery. You get to see absolutely everything. There are two different types of accommodation on board. The first is Silverleaf, which you can see here. Silverleaf passengers travel in a single-deck dome car with huge panoramic windows. You can see those behind the lady serving out the food, reaching all the way up to the ceiling, meaning you get a wonderful view of the passing scenery. Breakfast and lunch are included on board the train and are all served at your seat, as you can see here. The upgraded option is Gold Leaf, and Gold Leaf is located again in dome car with the wonderful windows. Again, you get a really good example there of how far the windows stretch all the way up to the ceiling. And upstairs, on 2 levels, upstairs you have comfortable reclining seats and panoramic windows, as you can see here. You can see actually one of the members of staff explaining some of the scenery you'll be passing by at that particular moment. And then downstairs you have a restaurant just for gold leaf passengers, where the meals are served in 2 sittings. So seating upstairs, restaurant downstairs. And there's also an open air viewing platform, which again is exclusively for gold leaf travelers, that you can step out and enjoy the scenery from the open air, perfect for photographs, videos, and just taking it all in, and perhaps a glimpse of the local wildlife as well. So there you have it. Another fantastic luxury journey heading across the Canadian Rockies, the Rocky Mountaineer. So that gives you a selection of our most popular luxury rail holidays. Of course, there are many, many more. We're just scratching the surface, really. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit us online at railbookers.co.uk. As I mentioned, you can download one of our e-brochures, including our luxury rail brochure, of course. Or if you choose from the list across the top, if you choose the option of holiday types, there's a luxury option. You can click on that and find out all of the different types of luxury rail holidays we feature. Many, many more options with the Orient Express, Rocky Mountaineer, all of the other trains we've looked at today, and some others that we haven't as well. So plenty of different options, all available at railbookers.co.uk. And all that remains for me to say, lastly, is to say thank you very much for your time in hopefully enjoying, spending time with us on the webinar today. It's been great to have you listening in today. And like to say thank you. Stay safe, look after yourselves, and hopefully we'll have the pleasure of your company on another webinar in the not too distant future. Thank you very much.